Welcome to Everyday Martial Artist, a weekly podcast where you'll join me, Brian Doucette, as I interview a different martial artist each episode and hear their story. Some guests you may have heard of, and some you probably haven't. Be sure to subscribe where all your favorite podcasts are available. Also visit our website at everydaymartialartist.com. If you're listening for a specific interview, I sure hope you'll stay and check out the other episodes. A very special thank you to Topher Williams for our custom theme music. And now, the newest episode of Everyday Martial Artist. Everyday Martial Artist is brought to you by KOOnline.com for all your martial arts needs. Sparring and safety gear, rank belts, uniforms, weapons, patches, and more. Wholesale supplies made by martial artists for martial artists. Visit us today at ko-online.com. Hello and welcome to Everyday Martial Artist. I'm your host, Brian Doucette, and as we do every week, we're joined by a brand new guest talking about their life and their journey throughout the world of martial arts. My guest today was born in Illinois, attended St. Andrew's School in Boca Raton, where he was the MVP in football and basketball. Also tried his hand at wrestling, where he placed fourth in the Florida State Collegiate Wrestling competition. Listeners will know him as a martial artist, professional kickboxer, and action movie star. As a kickboxer, he scored 72 wins with 48 knockouts and won a total of 11 world titles. He's been featured in and on the cover of most major martial arts magazines. You've seen him in such classic movies as Bloodfist, Ring of Fire, Red Sun Rising, Batman Forever, Cybertracker, Say Anything, and so many more. Please welcome my guest today, Don the Dragon Wilson. How are you doing today, sir?
Hi, Brian. Thanks for having me on.
Hey, thanks for taking the time. I truly appreciate it. How we kick the show off, I want to go back to the beginning. I know you said you started kind of when you were 18, but I just want to know where that first spark came from. What led to your first interest in martial arts and kind of kicked off your martial arts journey?
Well, as per your introduction, I was already an athlete, and I was attending the Coast Guard Academy. I was 17 years old, and I came home one day from, on leave in the Coast Guard Academy, and my brother and I used to box every now and then as young kids, teenagers, and he wanted to box, but because he had become a black belt while I was, I went to a prep school. You mentioned St. Andrews, and then I went to the Coast Guard Academy. So I've been gone for a few years. He had become a black belt. And he said, Don, I'm going to spar you. You go ahead and box. And he said, I'm going to throw some kicks. And I had no respect for kicks. I said, yeah, do whatever you want. If you want to. First of all, I was 205 at the time, and he weighed maybe 145.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Maybe. Yeah. So I just thought I'd just be too big for him. And I just dominate him boxing. But literally, now think about it. I'm not even a white belt. I'm a no belt, and he's a black belt. So he literally kicked my butt in our front yard when I was 17 years old. And when I went back to the Coast Guard, I tell people he made a believer out of me. When I went back to the Coast Guard Academy, I immediately went into their athletic director and I said, hey, do you have martial arts offered? And they said, yeah, we do. We have for all the cadets. It was Goju, and the teacher was Chuck Merriman.
Nice. Okay.
And so I immediately enrolled in the karate at the age of 17 after getting my rear end handed to me by my brother. And then after I got out of the Coast Guard, I studied Kung Fu because my brother had a Kung Fu class. Now, people ask me, they said, oh, you mean you didn't like Japanese karate and Kung Fu's better? And I said, no, it wasn't about better. I said, I was very happy with my Goju instructor, Chuck Merriman, and learning traditional Japanese karate. I said, but it would cost me money in Florida. And if I went to my brother's school, it's free. So that was my choice. But it did turn out, though, Brian, that the Pai Lam Kung Fu, Daniel K. Pai was a living master. He was his family's style, and he was alive, and he was very open-minded, and he believed in me training under, I went to Taekwondo schools, I went to boxing gyms, and he let me learn from everybody.
Wow.
Because he believed, like Bruce Lee, study everything, and then in the end you'll have your own personal style. And that's pretty much, now we call it MMA,
right?
But that's pretty much what people generally believe today. But it was blasphemy in the 60s and 70s when I started, and when Bruce Lee was alive. You're supposed to study one style and never diverge from that.
Yep.
But I started early on. I started with Goju and then went to Kung Fu. And from that day on, I studied everything I could experience.
So that first bit when you were in Goju, did you get into the competition side at that point, or did that come later?
No, that came later. I know I was just a beginner. I had to study for a year at the Coast Guard Academy because when we got out of Vietnam, I got out of the Coast Guard Academy.
Okay.
Yeah, if I had stayed one more year, I wouldn't have been able to get out. I'd have to serve finish out my 4-year degree and then serve 5 or 6 years was required after you get your degree. So, and I wasn't happy with the military lifestyle. I didn't like wearing the uniform every day, and I don't know. It just
Not for
Yeah,
everybody.
when we got out of Vietnam, I got out of the Coast Guard.
So now, did you get involved in the competition at all before you got into kickboxing?
Yes, I was a point fighter. Yeah,
You did?
point
Okay.
fighter. And I loved point fighting. It was a lot of fun. But I wasn't as good at it as I was in kickboxing. Yeah, but the things that I had the advantage were the physical, my conditioning. I ran 6 miles every day, so my heart, lungs, my cardiovascular was up.
Mm-hmm.
I lifted weights. I was strong. I was a middle linebacker. Like you said, I was the MVP of my high school football, and I was the MVP of the basketball team. I was a natural athlete, so that's stuff that didn't come into play for me as a point fighter. I was okay as a point fighter, but once I got into kickboxing, and we were fighting 10 and 12 rounds. Well, then all my athletic experience came into play, and I was able to excel really quickly.
Okay. I definitely want to get to the kickboxing, but really quick on the point fighting. Do you remember your first ever competition?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it was the Battle of Atlanta. First
Really?
tournament I ever as a white belt. And here's the things I remember. I remember the heavyweight division. I don't know if I won it, but I don't remember if I won it. But the head referee was a guy named Larry Reinhardt. Yeah, I still have some memories of the very first competition I ever entered in, and it was the Battle of Atlanta.
That's cool. Yeah, I've never been to that one.
It's a big tournament.
Yeah, it's a huge tournament.
I've
been to the Diamond Nationals, never been to the Battle of Atlanta.
Yeah, Nationals is another big one. Then there's U.S. Open, which is in Florida, which I've been at that one.
Okay.
And then John Pachivas had a big tournament in Miami, and that one's been around so long. Chuck Norris used to fight in that one.
Oh, wow. Now, did you ever get involved in forms or weapons competition, or strictly sparring?
Well, now that you bring it up, I was better at forms than I was at fighting.
Really?
Yeah, from white belt to black belt, I never failed to place first, second, or third in forms.
Nice.
But I would start to fight, and I'd lose my first fight. Guys outpointed me the very first fight. But when it comes to, they call it kata in Japan, but we call it forms in Kung Fu. I never failed to place first, second, or third in white belt, green belt, brown belt, to black belt. As a traditional martial arts competitor, I was better at forms than fighting.
That's kind of cool. I mean, that's something, and that's,
Well, people don't really think about it, but I got a lot of value of it. I mean, that your coordination, your control of your body, your relaxation, your flexibility, a lot of qualities that make you a better fighter, you have to have as a forms competitor. Jet Li was a forms competitor mainly, but Jet Li, this some wushu fighting, I'm sure. But I mean, do you have doubt that Jet Li could take out the normal guy if they tried to pick his wall?
No problem.
Yeah, he's got the skills. He's got the control over his feet and hands.
Yeah. So then what was it? I mean, you didn't do that well in sparring. So then what was it that popped into your head that said, hey, I'm not that good at this. Maybe I want to do professional fighting. I'm just trying to wrap my head around that.
I had no interest in professional fighting.
Oh, okay.
College, I graduated from BCC as a junior college after I left the Coast Guard, and I was going to go to FIT, Florida Institute of Technology, and I get a phone call from my brother, and he said, "Hey, Don," because my brother was already a promoter. He promoted karate tournaments. It was called the Space Coast Open. It's a pretty big tournament in the state of Florida, but not a big national thing.
Right.
But it was a decent tournament called the Space Coast Open, and it was in Cocoa, Florida. Well, he said he wanted to promote kickboxing. Would I be a fighter? And I go, absolutely. It sounded, well, we didn't even call it kickboxing. We called it full contact karate.
Okay.
On foam pads, no boxing gloves. There was no ring. My very first fight, we fought on a concrete floor.
Wow.
Now imagine this. You get knocked out. You're out when the guy hits you. And now your head I'm 6 feet tall. My head would fall 6 feet on the concrete.
Dang.
People would have died. Luckily, that first fight, because it's first fights in the state of Florida, on a concrete floor in Orlando, Florida, nobody got knocked out. Otherwise, somebody would have died. They would have died, yes. But what ended up happening is, after that fight, the fights went to mats. We fought on mats. Then they finally, you don't need to reinvent the wheel. Boxers fight in rings. Then kickboxers started fighting in rings. And we went to the generic thing from full contact karate. We called it kickboxing because that's what it is. You're boxing and kicking. It's more accurate.
Yeah.
It's not real karate, because you think of real karate, you think of gouging people's eyes out, grabbing the groin, and so it was at the time not sanctioned by athletic commissions, but once it was on TV and real money started coming in, and I fought the first fight on ESPN. That was 1979. And ESPN then bought a fight a week from the Professional Karate Association.
Wow.
So now they're making tons of money on ESPN every week. They have a weekly show of kickboxing. And that happened for years. I don't know how many years, but quite a few years.
Remember how many of those you got to fight on?
At least 20.
Wow.
At least 20.
That's cool.
Yeah, like that. Yeah. I was, became a number one contender for Bill Wallace's title.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, he retired, it was 1980, because I won my title in 1980. Yeah, so Bill must have retired. He fought from 74 to 80. That's 6 years of fighting. He was a champion for 6 years. And instead of fighting for the PKA, though, I fought for the WKA because the WKA had fights in Japan. And I wanted to fight in Japan.
Okay.
So that was the big thing for me for the choice of PKA or WKA title. Now, the WKA was more in Europe and Japan because they allowed leg kicks.
Okay.
To this day, the PKA never allowed leg kicks.
Really?
But, martial artists all over the world know that if you get into a street fight, the easiest thing to do is just kick the guy in the shin.
Yep.
Kick him with your shin in the thigh. It's easy. It's safe. You don't go for the fancy-looking head kicks.
Nope.
It's just as easy to kick the leg, and nobody knows how to block it. You have to train to block a leg. And, so it didn't make sense. I just think, Joe and the guy named Don Quine, the guys who started the PKA, thought it looks flashier to kick somebody in the head, right? I mean, they thought it looked like dirty fighting to have grown men kicking each other in the legs. And so they went with the no leg kicks allowed. But, I think now there's two different versions of kickboxing. They still have the full contact style. Yep. And I fought under all the styles. If they'd had MMA, I would have done that because I was a wrestler in college. And I would have just learned jiu-jitsu and submission. And then I would have been an MMA fighter, because I had the punching and kicking. Yep. I did that for 28 years. So all I'd have to do is add the grappling. But, I was just basically too old. I was too old to start when the sport started. It was in the 90s, and I'd been retired for years. Yeah. So as my prime as an athlete was 1984. Mm-hmm. I was Fighter of the Year, Black Belt Magazine's Fighter of the Year. And I did retire in 84, moved out to LA in 85 to pursue a career as an actor. Mm-hmm.
So during your fighting career, were you still also training in traditional martial arts, or were you focused mainly on training for fights?
I only did the fighting.
Okay.
I quit working arms and self-defense. And because, you only have so many hours in a day. And your opponent is training. I people said, Don, my style of sports is I have tunnel vision. When I was training in football, during football season, it was all about football. Put on the weight, I weighed 205. Then basketball season would come around. I'd drop 30, 40 pounds.
Jeez.
Drop down. I play. I scored 40 points a game as a guard. And was the MVP of my high school football team. I was a middle linebacker in the high school when I was a senior. And literally, I've stopped the entire offense by myself. I made 3 tackles in a row.
Wow.
In one thing. Yeah. I actually yelled at my other defensive players. I was the defensive captain. And I said, hey, man, I could use a little help out here. It was just some flukes. If anything, I think the other side was just trying to prove, because I got a reputation, when you're the MVP and you're the middle linebacker, they were going to prove that because I just stopped. There was no ground game up the middle on my team. I just put a stop to it. Right. I had a reputation in South Florida where I played, and but they thought they could break down the morale of our team if they could get a first down right over me. Mm-hmm. So they literally had the ball come up 3 times up the middle, and I stopped them all 3 times.
Wow.
So I looked at my other teammates and said, hey, there's 11 of us out here. One of you guys help me get a tackle.
Nice. Now, you mentioned Hollywood. Now, what was that something you decided to go seek out, or did they come to you?
I'll blame it all on Chuck. He went to my fight in West Palm Beach Auditorium. And at that fight, Bill Wallace had already worked with Chuck in a movie called Force of One. He did a movie called Force of One with Chuck. So they were good friends. So Bill said, let's go up to Chuck's hotel room with him. And so we did. And I in Chuck's hotel room after my fight, he said, Don, you should think about moving out to LA, getting an agent, enrolling in acting classes and things. He said, become an actor and it'll be your second career, because he said it was great for me. He goes, Bruce Lee put me in a movie and I've had a great second career. Now, this is way before Walker. We're talking 1979, 1980. Yep. So Chuck was doing movies for a company called Cannon Films.
Oh, yeah.
He was a pretty big star in the independent films. And so it was Chuck, because although some other people mentioned to me, maybe you should think about movies, and I don't even know why they think I would do it, because I never had an acting lesson in my life. I never appeared in a movie. I'm living in Florida. That's about as far as you can get from Hollywood. And but when Chuck suggested it, Brian, I thought, he knows what he's talking about, and then maybe it is something I could do. So I moved out to LA, of course, and I retired. This is 1985. I found out very quickly They're not looking for 6 foot tall Asians with Southern accents. And so I came out of retirement for the money. I needed the money. I couldn't stay out in LA. I went through all the money that I had saved as a fighter. And so I started fighting again. So then for several years, I fought and pursued my career as an actor. And when I started my first film, 1988, was Bloodfist. So much money was coming in that for me to take the time off to train for a fight, I'd lose money. And I told everybody, I said, man, you know what? When you're losing money to do something, that's not a career. That's called a hobby.
Yep.
I said, kickboxing was my hobby. And I said, it's an expensive one because I could have shot in the 6 weeks I trained for the fight, I could have made a movie. So that I retired again. That was my second retirement. And I didn't fight until 1999. I get a fight offer from Viewer's Choice. They were the biggest pay-per-view. They do the Tyson fights, Holyfields, and they offered me a great deal. My attorney was Henry Holmes, and he represented George Foreman, Hulk Hogan. He knew pay-per-view, and he said, Don, this is a great deal. You get 12% of the pay-per-view. So I came out of retirement again, and we're talking 1998, 99, around then.
Mm-hmm.
And I ended up fighting 3 more fights. And then my final fight was 2002, which was at the Tropicana, Atlantic City. I won by knockout with 4 seconds left in the 10th round.
Wow.
So that's pretty lucky. As a matter of fact, I hired boxing trainers at the time to work my corner. And I had Ken Norton's former trainer in my corner. He jumped in the ring. He goes, Don, you got to retire from fighting. He says, you used up all your luck. I might have lost the decision. It was the guy's hometown. He had fought there many years. He was quite a bit younger than me, and it was a close fight. I went into the fight with a broken rib. I had broke my rib in training.
Mm-hmm.
What I didn't realize is when you're 48 years old, you don't have the calcium you had as a young guy. So a sparring partner hit me in the rib and broke it. So I went into that fight, 10-round fight, with a broken rib. And it was tough. I couldn't take a deep breath. And luckily for me, I fought the dumbest opponent. You cannot fight a 48-year-old man and never throw a body shot. One body shot, I would have lost the fight. But he never did.
Wow.
He went 10 rounds. He was a headhunter. He tried to knock me out, but it didn't work. And I ended up winning by decision. Oh, no, wait, excuse me. I dropped him and knocked him out. There was 4 seconds left in the clock.
Yeah.
So I did knock him out. My last fight, I won by knockout with 4 seconds left on the clock. That's pretty lucky.
Mm-hmm. So then talk about the first movie then. How did the first movie come about?
Well, never going to happen for me.
Okay.
Because here's what's happening. I was going in an audition for everything and nobody was hiring me. Nobody was getting me. So I come home one day and I hit my answer machine. It says, hello, my name is Roger Corman. I'm a producer and I'm going to do a movie. And I'd like you to come in. If you're the Don Wilson, this kickboxing champion, I'd like you to come in and read for this movie. Now, the way he got my number was he went to his casting director and said, get me some real kickboxers that live in LA.
Nice.
So he wanted to audition real kickboxers because he thought Van Damme was a real kickboxer.
Mm-hmm.
So he wanted a world champion. And I guess either Black Belt Magazine or Inside Kung Fu, one of the magazines told him there's a guy named Don Wilson and he lives in Beverly Hills, and at the time I listed my phone number. I listed my phone number. I did that in those days.
Yep.
And so they just went to the phone book and called I don't know how many Don Wilsons live in Beverly Hills. And listen, I have a house. I had an apartment. We call it the ghettos of Beverly Hills. I lived in a nice apartment. They don't have bad apartments in Beverly Hills. But I lived in an apartment in Beverly Hills at the time. And he said, my name's Roger Corman. Would you come read for this movie? Now, Brian, when they first saw my face, now they didn't know what I looked like. When they saw my face, they said, oh, we're sorry, this is our Caucasian lead. The brother's already been picked and the brother is white. And, they weren't looking for Asians that look like me because they're shooting in the Philippines and they got plenty of guys who look like me in the Philippines, right? They're not going to fly me there.
Yep.
So I got what they call in Hollywood a courtesy read. Like, well, you're here, so we'll just let you read anyway. But, we don't think you're right for it, but I'll sit through it just because you showed up. So I go in there and I read for this casting director. One scene we do, and he looks at me and he goes, I'll be right back. He leaves his office and he says, when he comes back, he goes, Roger Corman wants to meet you. Now, I'd never heard of the guy.
Mm-hmm.
And it's lucky for me because I would have been nervous. I mean, that guy made he made James Cameron's career, gave him his first job.
Yep.
Stallone, Robert De Niro, Jack Nicholson. I mean, he just is a guy who starts people's careers.
Yeah.
But I didn't know that. Luckily for me, I didn't know it. So I go into this office and he says, tell me about yourself. And I told him I was a kickboxer and Chuck Norris suggested I come to Hollywood. So I'm out here now trying to be an actor. So he said, would you read for me? And so I start doing the scene with the casting director. And I literally couldn't get out more than 4 lines. And he stops me. Now, usually that means you're so bad that he doesn't want to waste one more minute on you. He wants to see the next guy now, when they stop you in the middle of the audition. But what had happened was Roger Corman had seen enough. He grabs the script and he hands it to me. He said, you leave for the Philippines in 2 weeks.
Wow.
I got role with like 4 lines of dialogue. Now, actors in Hollywood, famous ones, big actors, because my best friend was Chris Penn. So Chris and Sean knew everybody in Hollywood.
Mm-hmm.
So I was right in with all they always asked me, what scene was it? How did you get the starring role in the movie from Roger Corman? And I said, it's the only scene, that level of my career, that I could have possibly done well. And it's a scene where I find out that the guy that I hired to train me for this tournament murdered my brother. And I did the first lesson they teach you in acting class is if you don't know how your character would play a scene, just go do the what if school of acting. And John Cusack told me this, and he's one of my longtime friends in Hollywood.
Yep.
He said, Don, do the what if school of acting. He said, what if that happened to you? So I looked at the casting director and I thought, what if this guy killed my brother? And I don't know what happened, Brian, but I knock on wood because I would not have a career if not for this moment. Somehow I got into my game face and I looked at that casting director like I was going to kill him because my mind murdered my brother. And the look you have for a guy that killed your brother, and I'm very close to my brother. It's the only sibling I have, and we're a year and a half apart. He was my kung fu instructor, and he was my manager when I was a fighter. So, so you couldn't get any closer. 2 brothers can't get much closer. And for 30 seconds, I was going to kill that casting director that I was reading with him. And Roger could see it on my face. And I tell people to this day, I said, I fooled Roger Corman. He thought I could act. Well, listen, I did good enough. Bloodfist was a big hit, and I did good enough. We did 8 Bloodfists, and I ended up starring in movies. And I've appeared in probably 70, because I get paid more now to do one scene in a movie than I used to work for 3 months on a movie.
Wow.
Yeah. I even called my agent once. Me and Billy Zane were appearing in a scene for this science fiction movie, and I called my agent, and they're paying me literally 3 times what I used to get paid. And I called my agent. I said, why am I getting all this money? He said, well done. This is a bigger budget movie, and Billy Zane doesn't want to be working with a no-name actor, so you got a recognizable name. And the truth is, I had met him twice.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, if we get you Don Wilson, is that a good guy to do this? Because what it was an Asian businessman. Billy Zane's a mad scientist, and the Asian businessman comes in. He thinks I'm there to kill him, so he has me killed. So it's kind of a weird thing, but they must have said some Japanese or some Asian looking actors' names, but when they popped up with my name, Billy Zane, I'm thinking I got that part because of Billy Zane said, oh yeah, I know Don Wilson. Yeah, I'd love to work with him. Because we met at Sean Penn's house the first time. Then the second time, he was doing a movie for Roger Corman. And, I don't know if you know Billy Zane, but he played the bad guy in the Titanic.
Yes.
I don't know if they ever met at Rogers because James Cameron worked for Roger for years. He started with Roger Corman. So I don't know if he even, but maybe he just they did a casting or something. But he ended up being the bad guy in the Titanic. But
did you meet Chris Penn through martial arts, or did you meet him through a movie?
He played martial arts with a friend of mine named Jerry Blank.
Okay.
Jerry Blank was a kickboxer, bantamweight kickboxer. My brother managed Jerry. That's the connection. Jerry's from Florida. I'm from Florida. We both knew each other as fighters. And then Jerry moved to L.A. And he had his school in Malibu. So I met Chris Penn and Charlie Sheen on the same day.
Nice.
Yeah, Chris and I sparred. I stayed at his parents' house. And, he became my best friend. When I moved out to L.A., we were best friends. We even lived together in his condo in Santa Monica for 1 year. But we really got to know each other. And we've done several things together. And I was the last guy to talk to him before he passed away.
Oh, man. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
He was such a talent, such a great actor.
He had not done his best work.
He was good.
He was overweight. He had done a lot of cocaine in the 80s. Like all the actors out here. We were all doing it when I moved here. They did a lot of cocaine, and it damaged his heart. And at the time he died, he was 310.
Wow.
He was overweight, had a heart attack. And it was very sad.
Yeah.
Very sad.
Now, you also mentioned John Cusack, and you got to spar him a little bit and Say Anything, which is one of my all-time favorite movies.
Well, the way that movie came about was that script was written for Chris Penn. That's why the guy was a kickboxer, because Chris was studying kickboxing, and Cameron Crowe wrote it for Chris. And when he saw Chris and they started talking, Cameron thought Chris looked too old. He didn't look like a high school kid. Mm-hmm. So I don't know who suggested John Cusack. I had met him one time before that, but I don't think I was the first. That was the first name that popped in my head. But whatever happened, Cameron Crowe asked me if I would train him because John Cusack knew nothing about kickboxing. So I started training John Cusack, and then after he did the show, he loved kickboxing. He hired Benny Urquidez, and Benny became his private instructor. Wherever he was in L.A., he would train with Benny. In fact, matter of fact, he used to take Benny with him when he does movies and stuff.
Yeah, that's what Benny said. That's cool.
Yeah, he worked with Benny for many years. But he was good. When I worked with him, he picked it up fast.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Benny told a story that he actually thought John could have been a pro fighter if he wanted to be, because he was that dedicated and did it well enough.
Look, there's no doubt in my mind. Yes, he easily could have been a successful pro fighter. But, would that be a smart thing to do? I don't think so. He's a great actor. He's a great actor.
Oh, he's one of my all-time favorite actors. Yeah, I love it. Pretty much any movie, if John Cusack's in it, I will watch it. High Fidelity, Say Anything. I just watched Gross Point Blank with my daughter a few weeks ago. So love it.
That was when I think it's one of the first ones he produced.
Yeah. So now you obviously have got, throughout your movie career, got to work with so many other great martial artists and stuff, and which is just cool. I mean, how many times did you get to work with Cynthia?
Yeah, I bet you we've been in 6 movies together, at least.
That's cool.
We had the same agent. We had the same Ray Cavallari, who passed away a year ago. But Cynthia and I, but we worked together later in our careers, not when we were coming up.
Yeah.
Here's the way it worked. In the old days, if I signed to do a movie, that's all they needed. They get instant distribution worldwide. If Cynthia signed, so to get us both in the movies cost double the amount of money, and it is, and you don't get a bigger audience. It's the same audience watching Cynthia's movies, watch mine.
Right.
So that's why you didn't see. But today, because Stallone proved it, when you put a bunch of stars in one movie, then all the action fans will support it.
Yes.
That's what's happening with Cynthia's movies. She's got a movie called Black Creek, and she's wanted as many martial art actors in it as possible. I'm in it, and who else? Richard Norton,
Billy Blanks, I think.
Billy Blanks. Yeah, just about everybody.
Yeah.
We're almost all, Olivier Gruner.
I'm excited for that one. That's going to be a great movie.
Yeah, well, listen, it's not a realistic movie in this sense. It's a drama because it's a dark movie. It's a dark. Her sister is murdered in the opening scene, so she's got to get revenge. So that's dark, right? That's not a funny. It's not a comedy,
right? But
it's like John Wick. John Wick is not really Earth. You know what I mean? He's sitting there, and there's a crowd of people, and then all of a sudden, all of them stop moving. It's not Earth. Yeah. It's some alternate reality. It's like they say they've discovered 11 different dimensions already with that, using that particle collider at CERN, I guess they call it.
Yep.
It's in Switzerland or something. They said there's more dimensions than the ones we're living in. And this is similar to that. The idea of this movie is everybody knows martial arts in this Western. So I am a part Indian, part Chinese guy, kind of like a David Carradine character.
Okay.
Who finds her wounded and dying, and I basically, my character brings her back to life, and then becomes her martial art instructor when I find out she needs to go get revenge on these people that killed her sister.
Nice.
So I got a good role. We were shooting it in Arizona, and it's Cynthia's first time she's done this. I've done it many times where I've had an idea, hired a writer, and raised the money, and made movies. I've done many 17, 18 movies that way, but this is the first time she's done it.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to support her, and we're all, hoping that it becomes a success for her.
And I love what she's doing, how she's giving basically fans an opportunity to take part in the movie. That's huge.
Well, yes, I'm doing fight scenes with people, and she's got 1,000,001 different things we're doing. Everybody wants to help her with this first movie producing, and and like I said, it's a good character for me. So as a professional, it's not like she's asking me to do something that's not good for my career.
Right.
I tell people work turns into work. It's better to be working than not working.
Yeah. So with the industry like it is today, how hard is it going to be for a movie like that to actually get it into a theatrical release versus just going to streaming like so many movies do nowadays?
No reason to do. Listen, theatrical releases make a profit for a very small number of films.
Right.
Most films get released in theaters as a form of advertising for the DVD, for the streaming and all that. A movie at this budget doesn't need a theatrical release. We released. She's going to release it on, let's just say, on Amazon, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And they direct the traffic to it. People come, it pops up. They look at the trailer. They go, "Hey, look, there's a ton of martial artists. It's like Expendables. Let's watch this."
Mm-hmm.
Nobody has to pay money. They're advertisers that pay money for every click. So, and I don't know, it's not big money. It's something like 30 cents or something. I don't know how much they get every time somebody watches it. But if 1 million people watch it, and 1 million is not a big number for a movie. My movie show on TV, I get millions and millions of people. I had 4 HBO world premieres, and HBO's in many millions of homes. And it was Red Sun Rising was my best HBO premiere. And that one was, I think it was either 1 or 2. It was like at the top of all cable shows the year it came, or the week it came out. Red Sun Rising, So these movies don't have to have theatrical release, and this one's not designed for it. And if they did do it, it would only be to advertise the movie.
Right.
But I think advertising. People see all our names on there, and they've seen my movies and Cynthia's movies and Richard Norton's and Olivier Gruner's, Billy Blanks is even in it. I mean, it's got plenty of popularity amongst the martial art action fans.
Definitely. So looking through your movie list, now obviously, like you said, you made eight Bloodfist, you made a couple Cybertrackers. Is there one that you've made where you'd love to, that didn't get a sequel, that you'd love to revisit that character and play him again?
Yeah, I wouldn't mind doing there's a character, Jimmy Boland, I think he was from Forced to Fight with Richard Roundtree.
Oh, okay.
Prison movie. I was in prison. It was actually Bloodfist 3. It was my third film for Corman, Bloodfist 3. And it was a character that dealt with, in those days, they were hot topics, but it's even today, maybe it would be more popular, but it was, there's a black gang, a white gang, then an Asian in a prison. So I didn't have any game. So I had to fight both sides. And what happened was the black gang leader and the white gang leader get together to try to take me out. And that was a good character. It was a good story, a lot of drama. And when the movie ended, I'm still in prison. So we could start the movie with me getting out.
Okay. That could be cool.
Yeah. What happened was, though, a Chinese producer who only makes movies, as far as I know, in China, Beijing, because he bought the rights from Corman just before the pandemic for the Bloodfist whole series. And he bought the rights, and he was going to do a TV series in Beijing, and I agreed to do it. And then what happened was, this was before the pandemic, Trump started kind of like a pseudo trade war with China, and then that was the end of the series. The Chinese government said they didn't want any American actors coming to Beijing. So that cut me out. But it could easily get picked up again, a Bloodfist series, and it'd be shot out of Beijing. And then all my friends, I'd fly them over there. You know, they'd appear in it. They only have to go for a week you shoot a whole series or a whole episode in a week. You know, I was in one of the episodes of Chuck's series, Walker. And we shot in a week. And that's the way they do TV.
I was actually going to ask you about that because I know you were in an episode of Walker. I was going to ask if TV would ever interest you, and you kind of just answered that. So
yeah, well, I've been offered TV shows, and I turned most of them down. And the couple that I did go for, they were canceled because of outside my control.
Okay.
One was out in New York City. It was going to be me and an actor named Dean Cain. I don't know if you remember him.
Yeah, Superman.
Yeah, he played Superman.
Yep.
But he's 1/4 Asian. He's 1/4 Japanese.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, and so I'm half. So he was going to play my son. Oh, excuse me. Wait a minute. He was going to be my younger brother.
Okay.
He was going to be a New York cop. And anyway, that series was canceled because of 9/11. It was going to take place in New York City. And yeah, 9/11 just shut everything down, and that was the end of it. It was the William Morris agency was the agency handling it. And that was, so I've had series and come close to doing them. Okay. And through reasons outside of my control, they were canceled.
Okay.
But I'd love to do TV because, it was a big success for Chuck, 8 years.
Yeah.
Walker. Yeah.
It was a great show.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm curious now, you talked about it a little bit, and I know you commentated a handful of the UFC. So just what are your thoughts overall on MMA, and is that something you're a fan of?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, of course. It's just any sport that helps you martial art is a good thing. Because I tell people I'm not a kickboxer. I'm a kung fu stylist. I use kickboxing to improve my striking ability and defense against strikes. And I believe it did improve me as a martial artist. But I'm not a kickboxer. I'm a martial artist. And MMA is the same thing. It's just a sport. It's not actual self-defense. An MMA guy. It's on YouTube. You can watch it. And he gets into like a video. You see him get into an argument with a guy in a 7-Eleven. And so the MMA guy goes, the guy goes, okay, let's take it outside. So the MMA guy goes outside. And I don't know who he is. He's not, I don't believe a champion, but I mean, highly rated. And he goes out there ready to fight the guy, right? And right on the video, because this is the outside video now picking this up, a guy comes with a 2x4, hits him on the back of the head, knocks him out.
Jeez, wow.
That's what MMA. MMA, there's no rules on the street. And yeah, he can physically submit the guy and choke the guy out and all. But what if that guy would have pulled a gun out of his back pocket?
Yep.
Anything. It's not self-defense. You've got to be aware. You don't do that, first of all. He went out there, and you can see on the video, the guy had a long run up to him, and he didn't realize it. You got to be aware of your environment. These are basic self-defense. I don't know what his martial art background was, that particular MMA guy, but I know this. The sport of MMA is like the sport of kickboxing. I can't get into a street fight and think that there's going to be a referee, 2-minute time limit. I get a minute rest every 2 minutes.
Right.
And it's kickboxing. I did excel in kickboxing, won a lot of world titles, made a lot of money. That's not self-defense. They asked Bruce Lee, I'm a big Bruce Lee fan, what's your most dangerous technique? He didn't say a side kick, right hook, left, straight left. He said his eye gouging. because he said he's fast and he works on it. He does 2-finger push-ups, so he's got tension he could put on his fingers. He's faster than me. I think he might take my eyes out. If I get anywhere close to him, and that's the only thing he's doing is going for my eyes, he might get them. And you know what? I do not work the heavy bag wearing blindfold. If Bruce Lee takes your eyes out, you're done.
Exactly.
No matter how big you are, no matter how many kickboxing matches you won, no matter how many MMA fans, and you know, MMA guys go, well, yeah, I could gouge his eyes too. Well, you know what? Okay, then it's equal. But you know, Bruce Lee worked on eye gouging. Mm-hmm. I never see MMA guys do 2-finger push-ups.
Right.
Bruce Lee would do the 2-finger push-ups. One arm would be behind his back. He would get it with literally 2 fingers. So I don't know how guys condition themselves so that they can do these finger jabs accurately and, you know, do the most damage. But whatever it was, if Bruce Lee says that's his most dangerous technique, I believe him.
I would agree.
You know what I mean? He said the eyes are like a grate. You don't have to have Joe Frazier left hook and hit me on the chin and knock me out. You could just poke me in the eye.
Yep.
And that's it. And that's why nobody should say who they can beat up, who they can't. The only way to prove it is to get in the ring and fight him.
Exactly.
And Bruce Lee is dead, so I'm never going to fight him. So I'm never going to say, oh, if Bruce Lee fought me, I'd knock him out. I have no idea what would happen.
Right.
I assume by his speed and size that he would be landing some punches and kicks. I don't know how hard he hits, and I don't know how accurate, because, you know, I've never seen him fight. But, yeah, I'm not going to just assume because I'm 185 pounds and he's 145 that I would win.
Right.
On the street, there's no scales. They don't weigh us.
And if you want to find someone who can beat Bruce Lee, just ask anyone in an internet chat room. all of them can beat Bruce Lee according to them.
Well, you know what?
It's like, wow.
Easier said than done. There's a saying, easier said than done.
Exactly.
Well, first of all, look, real fighters, and look, Michael J. White's a friend of mine, by the way, good friend. I got him a SAG card, by the way.
Nice.
So, but Mike White said, they asked him, could he beat Bruce Lee? He said, yeah, I'm just too big for Bruce Lee. And not saying that about him, his technique, his fighting abilities, but he's just too big. But that's not true. That's not a definitive thing. Like, I can't say, oh, I could beat Sugar Ray Leonard because I'm just too big for Sugar Ray Leonard. I never fought him. He's fast. You never know what's going to happen in a fight, you know? And so I would never make those kind of comments categorically that I could beat Rocky Marciano or Bruce Lee or Mike Tyson, you know, if I can kick. And it's, yeah, there's no sense in that. The only way to prove who would beat anybody is to get in the ring and fight. Right. And since I am retired, but I'm doing exhibitions. I got offered an exhibition with a guy named Michelle Kesey, who's a good friend of Jean-Claude Van Damme's. Oh, yeah. And Michelle Tong Po is with the character. And so right now they presented it to the Saudi government, and they're thinking about Dubai. It would be a pay-per-view in Dubai. And I said yes, you know, because first of all, Michelle Kesey was an amateur boxer. In the 80s. He's an amateur boxer. But we're not doing amateur boxing. We're doing kickboxing. As far as I know, he never had a kickboxing match, you know. And when they asked about me throwing kicks, he acted like, you know, kicks don't mean anything. He goes, he can kick all he wants. You know, he doesn't realize. But, you know, if you're working out with Van Damme was a point fighter. He was never a kickboxer. Yep. So maybe when they sparred, maybe Van Damme's kicks, although they look good and they're quick, they look flashy, maybe he didn't, you know, give Michelle Kesey any power. But my sidekick to the body, anybody that tries to throw a punch at me, they're doing me a favor, because there's no way you can punch me without opening up your body. Yep. So, yeah. But you know what? The thing is, it's not a fight, it's an exhibition. And if somebody gets stunned, they immediately stop it. They're not going to let anybody get hurt. So it's safe. And, you know, the money's good.
And the fans are going to love it.
It's going to be a fun thing. Look, the fight that I got offered was with Roy Jones. Now, Roy and me, it's going to be a war because we both got egos. And, you know, he was a great light heavyweight boxer. I was a great light heavyweight kickboxer. And, yeah, we talked about fighting in the 90s, but it didn't happen. Instead, he gained weight and became a heavyweight. Then he went back to light heavyweight and then got knocked out twice. And I understand he just lost a fight, so that might take some of the shine off him fighting me. But I think people would want to see Roy and I just get in the ring and spar for 8 rounds, 10 rounds, whatever they make it.
I'd watch that.
I think Roy and Mike Tyson did 8 rounds.
I think so. Yep.
Yeah. And they were 2-minute rounds, 12-ounce gloves, a little bit bigger gloves, and they didn't really try to hurt each other. And I wouldn't try to hurt Roy. I would just put on a show. It's a show. I'm just exhibiting what my, you know, I know I would put some pretty hard side kicks to his body just to keep him off me, you know, and get him to respect the side kick. But, yeah, I think people would watch it. I think boxing fans would want to see what happens. And I think martial art fans would want to see what happens with me and Roy in the ring. Yeah. That may happen.
I hope so.
But I just don't, you know, I don't want him to look bad. I don't want to look bad myself. So, you know, I'm just going to kind of like a public sparring kind of a thing.
I hope so. Fingers crossed. That would be fun to watch.
I told him, I said, as long as, I said, nothing I throw is going to hurt you. I said, but if you're disrespectful to me in the ring in any way, I said, well, then, if you want to make it a fight, it's going to be a fight because I will decapitate him then.
Nice.
The bombs will be unleashed because, and I'm talking about throwing an elbow, trying to headbutt me, kick kneecap, or anything that is disrespectful. If he makes a mistake, I'm not going to decapitate him. But if he does something dirty, I don't have respect for him in that regard, and I will, unload a few bombs. And you never know what can happen in a fight. I mean, he's talking nice, and I'm talking nice, but you know what's going to happen.
Adrenaline kicks in. You never know.
Yeah. I got nothing against him. I just going to go out there and I've done many exhibitions since I retired, and this will just be one more exhibition, which means I show my skills and he shows his skills. But, I think the exciting thing for the audience is, maybe he's got Van Damme in his corner. Maybe Van Damme's going to say, okay, knock out that dragon.
Okay, so I know you have kids. Now, have any of your children studied martial arts at all?
All my children have studied martial arts little bit.
Okay.
But none of them, it was not their thing.
Okay.
For example, I believe Brandon Lee did a little bit when he was young,
but
it was not his thing. He didn't become the Battle of Atlanta winner. He didn't go to the U.S. In other words, he didn't dedicate himself to that because Brandon, from what I understand, I never met him, had a real desire to be a dramatic actor.
Right.
He just wanted to be an actor. He wanted to be a good actor. He found out couldn't get cast in anything unless he did martial arts because he's Bruce Lee's son, right?
Yeah.
So if he does martial arts, they said, we'll star you in a movie. But if not, there are other actors they would use. And, there were doors in Hollywood that kept black actors out of A-list stuff and kept Mexicans out of A-list stuff and kept Asians out in those days, in the 80s. And Bruce Lee's days, even. Do you know they never thought he was the star of Enter the Dragon? Warner Brothers thought John Saxon was. Bruce was his sidekick because they needed somebody that was famous in fighting to be the guy winning the tournament. So they got this young actor with broken English. Van Damme's English was kind of thick, or it had an accent, real thick Chinese accent. And Warner Brothers thought in their minds John Saxon's the star of this thing. And I've met John. He's a nice guy. I've never met any person who watched Enter the Dragon for John Saxon.
Yeah.
We watch it because it's Bruce Lee.
And I bet John Saxon will be the first one to tell you that.
Probably.
Yep.
And he's a great guy, you know. But people, there was a perception. Now, I don't call it prejudice because Chris Penn used to tell me, Don, it's not prejudice. If a Green Martian started a movie and it was a hit, everybody would want their own Green Martian in Hollywood. They don't care who you are. They didn't think a black actor is a lead and an Asian actor is a lead or a Mexican actor is a lead would sell to mainstream America. And so they didn't star him in films. When I came out here, there was only one Asian who had starred in an American film, and it was Shogosugi.
Oh, yeah.
He was starring in a ninja movie. Yep. Yes. And so I was the next one. I did Bloodfist, and I'm Asian American, and it's a big hit, and I did 8 Bloodfists and had a career. But the doors were just, I was knocking down the doors, a lot of the A-list stuff that I was offered, they told me I had to do a thick accent, and I didn't do the movies. One of them was with Sean Connery. Oh. It was called, he did it with Wesley Snipes. I don't remember. But anyway, it was Sean Connery, Wesley Snipes. They wanted me to be in it, and I said, I don't do accents. And so I guess they probably used Kerry Tagawa, as I'm recalling. Rising Sun.
Yes, Rising Sun. Yep.
Yeah. I was in Europe, and they waited for me to get back because they wanted me to play this character. And I said, I didn't know that they wanted this thick accent. I said, no. And they said, you're not doing those accents. I said, no. I said, I want to be an action star, and I'm not doing any accents. And so, I guess that probably kept me out of a lot of other Hollywood appearances or work or whatever, that I wouldn't do the thick Asian accent. First of all, I think I'd embarrass myself. Mm-hmm. And second of all, that's not what I came out here. Chuck didn't say, hey, be a working actor. He said, come out here and be a martial arts star, action star. Right. And that's what I did. I had 30 movies I started. And of course, now I'm 68. I don't even know if there is there an action star that's 68? I think they're pretty much done by then, but I'm still doing movies. Yeah. But, the idea that I'm the up and coming kickboxer and I'm going to do half the movie with my shirt off because I used to do those kind of movies. Yeah. That's not an option anymore. I still like making movies. I'm still looking for some good scripts that are age appropriate, kind of like Liam Neeson. Mm-hmm. He played like an special forces, secret agent guy whose daughter gets kidnapped and he's got to do something that then all of a sudden his skills are necessary.
Yep.
Those kind of movies I could do, like Equalizer for Denzel Washington.
Yeah.
He's a former special operative or whatever who, he runs into people who need help and he helps them, the Equalizer. So I could use those kind of characters, I think, at my advanced age. And there's a kick that I threw in the 90s I can't throw now. So it's not like I can't do the fight scenes. I easily can do them. It's just the audiences are not my age.
Right.
The audiences are all young, especially action movies.
Okay.
Yeah, what's good about the way the business is changing is you don't need as big an audience anymore to be successful because we've got so many Netflix and Amazon, YouTube even has movies, and there's a thing called Tubi TV.
Yep, love Tubi.
My movies are really well on that. Yeah, Tubi TV. Yeah, they're showing some of my old movies there. What they do is they change the artwork and they re-release them. So these 16, 17, 18-year-old fans of action movies, they've never heard of me. They've never seen these movies. To them, it's new movies. They're teenagers and they're looking for action. And, the success of The Matrix proves that martial arts is still popular. They throw more kicks in The Matrix than I threw in my movies.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. So
hopefully the roles keep coming your way because I love seeing you on screen, sir.
Thank you. I like doing it. And of course, the money's good. But it's not just for the money.
Right.
Luckily, I didn't have a drug problem. I didn't have a gambling problem. And, I didn't blow all my money when I was in the 90s making. I made up to 5 movies a year when I was young.
Wow.
And according to Entertainment Weekly, they did a story on me. They said no actor had ever done that. But first of all, video didn't exist.
Yeah.
And what actor? Tom Cruise doesn't need 5 Mission Impossibles.
Right.
They do 1 a year or every other year even.
Mm-hmm.
And that's they put $100 million in the budget. And, they don't do it. But for me, I shot and released. Actually, it was 13 months, Brian, but 5 movies in 13 months. But they call it a year, but it's so close to a year.
Wow.
Yeah, and they were all successful, all money makers.
That's crazy.
So I tell people I was at the top of the bottom. I was doing direct-to-video back in the 80s, 90s, but me and Cynthia Rothrock had our picture in Time magazine. It was me, Shannon Tweed, Cynthia Rothrock, and an actor named Andrew Stevens.
Okay.
Andrew used to do what they call erotic thrillers. There'd always be somebody getting killed, and there'd be a girl who would take her top off. That's a kind of erotic thriller. And so the 4 of us, we were so popular on VHS that we had our pictures in Time magazine or in some of the best direct-to-video stars. Because, America, we still run the entertainment business.
Right.
Well, if you're an American star, you're one of the most popular video stars in America. You're popular all over the world, included. So us 4 were considered the top 4 direct-to-video stars. Don't remember the year, but it was in the early 90s.
That's cool. All right, so I have a few fun questions to wrap things up. This one I'm really curious about because you know so many people and you've trained with and worked with so many people. Now it doesn't have to be 4. I've had as few as 2 and as many as 8. Just give me like 3, 4, 5 names that you would put on your personal Mount Rushmore of martial arts.
Do you mean that I train with, or
they don't have to be. It can be someone like a Bruce Lee. I mean, Bruce Lee and Chuck Norris are probably picked the most out of all my guests, but it's just four people who you think belong up there on that list.
Yeah, Bruce Lee, Chuck Norris, Bill Wallace.
Nice.
For me, Eddie Kiedis.
Nice.
One of the guys I look up to. I'm specific because those were kickboxers.
Yeah.
But there are MMA guys now. They're great, doing great, and I look up to them. And I've got friends of mine like Maurice Smith, great kickboxer, became an MMA UFC champion.
Yep.
He did the crossover to the MMA and became MMA or a UFC champion. I got a lot of respect for him and like him, and he did a great job in Bloodfist 2 as the bad guy. I just so many guys that I work with that I like, and like I said, Chris Penn was my best friend, and we trained together a lot. He introduced me to my boxing coach at the time. Both of them, actually, Pat Goosen and Bill Slate. Yeah, they were boxing trainers of mine, and I met them through Chris Penn. And let's see, what a martial artist. I hate to leave anybody out, but there's just a lot. There's a lot of other fighters and things, that I trained. James Waring, great fighter. He was an IBF boxing champion and WKA cruiserweight champion. There's some non-kickboxers, that did movies and then they were fighters over like Ron Van Cleef.
Oh yeah, love Ron. Yep.
Yes, Ron did the acting and the competitions. He fought in one of the UFC.
I remember that. Yep. Yeah. Ron's been on the show. He was a former guest.
Great guy, great, nice guy, and very iconic. Keeps himself in shape. Look, we should be the examples. As a martial artist, you should have discipline. Now, listen, I never met Bruce Lee. I'm old, but not that old. Because Bruce Lee didn't just say stay in shape. Just take a look at the pictures of Bruce Lee.
Yeah, he was in shape.
And you couldn't pinch an ounce of fat on him. Okay, I've had times in my life where I was in that shape, but I was fighting at the time. I was a pro athlete. Bruce Lee was not a pro athlete. He was an actor and a martial artist. And you know what? He did that for his martial arts. He didn't do that for the movies.
Right.
I believe he just lived that way, lived in great shape. Chuck Norris is another example. He's in great shape. He's a competitor. He doesn't have an ounce of fat on him, and he's lean. And that's Bill Wallace is the same way.
Yeah.
Bill Wallace could fight this weekend at 165. I guarantee he's not a pound over his fighting weight.
When I interviewed him, he actually told me that. He said he weighs within a pound of what he did the day he retired from fighting.
You know how many retired world champions can say that?
Not many.
None. What boxers look like. Look at what the kickboxers look like. It's almost none anyway. You might well say virtually none.
Yeah.
Virtually is not exactly, but it's for all practical purposes. I told him he's a mute and he can still kick you in the face easily.
And fast.
How older I can't bend over and touch my toes. My muscles are all so tight because I'm old. No. He's 10 years older I believe 8 years older than me. I'm 68, so he's 76, something like that, Bill.
I think so, yeah.
And he kicked you in the head 3 times easily. So the rest of us don't have excuses why we're not in shape, why we can't stretch. No, that's really what martial arts should be about. Benny Urquidez is in great shape.
Yes.
Matter of fact, I think in some ways he's in better shape than in his prime. In his prime, I think he's like Duran. He used to put on a little weight in between fights, right? Mm-hmm. Duran used to do that. But now Benny is into healthy foods. And I don't think he's become a vegetarian, but he looks great. He's in great shape. And, I hope this movie I'm doing for Cynthia, I think I'm going to have to do some shirts off stuff. So my diet's already started.
Nice.
My diet's already started. Yes, I'm going to get in shape for her movie. And, but we should all be examples like that for the general public. We should all say martial arts is not just for self-defense. It's for mental health, emotional stability, and physical health as well. Being the best you can be in all aspects of your life.
Hey, that's great. I love that.
Yeah. If we end on something, that's my philosophy. It's whenever I do something, I try to do the best I can. And that helped me as a fighter, and it's helped me as a actor.
Nice.
I don't consider myself a thespian, but I try to do the best job I can, try to find the best scripts, and get the most experienced directors, work with the better actors. I believe we should all strive to do and be our best.
I like it. All right. Got a few more quick ones. How about a favorite martial arts book?
Oh, darn. You know what? There was one that was, oh gosh. Well, Chuck Scott's Secret of Inner Strength. I like that because it's a good thing for you to emulate. Yep. And he's an actual person that I know, and I know he did it. And you see him in his life and his relationships and his career successes that he used it and it worked. But Bruce Lee had a book. Gosh, I'm trying to think.
Tao Jeet Kune Do?
It might have been the Tao Jeet Kune Do where he talked about he hurt his back and he was in the hospital, and that's when he wrote it. Is that the one he wrote? Is the Tao Jeet Kune Do? Where he drew the pictures himself.
See, technically, Tao Jeet Kune Do, it wasn't meant to be a book.
Yeah, he hurt his back.
It was just notes, and the book wasn't actually published till years after he died.
Yeah, because he didn't really take pictures for it. He drew them.
Yeah.
He drew pictures. He had a little artistic talent, He drew pictures of himself throwing punches and stuff. Mm-hmm. Anyway, that I've read that, and even though he was not a pro fighter, everything he says made sense.
Yeah.
His fighting philosophy, I tell people it's like Einstein. Einstein didn't go out and make a bunch of great equipment, electronic equipment. He sat there and thought and figured out how the universe works. You know what I mean? Like the speed of light's the only constant, and the predicted black holes and things that we didn't have knowledge of or instrumentation to find out if they were true or not. He predicted this stuff. And then years later, we find out, that thing that Einstein said, there are quarks and there are neutrinos coming out of the sun, things that we never tested for, all kinds of stuff, physics-wise, turned out to be true. Even quantum physics, which Einstein doubted, but he did admit before he died, supposedly he admitted, it looks like the evidence leads that quantum physics is true. He didn't like believing it, but so they said before he died, he admitted, not that it was true, but he admits that the evidence appears as if it's true. He at least did that. And that's what Bruce Lee was. And that's the way I think these his book and things that he said. He didn't start an association or anything and have a sport and start a sport and train. He didn't do physical things, but his philosophy is what we all follow.
Right.
He said study everything. Before there was MMA, he said study all the martial arts. In the end, you'll have your own personal style. And I believe in that. I think everybody now accepts it. But it was blasphemy when Bruce Lee said it. And so he was like the Einstein of martial arts, Bruce Lee. Chuck is an example of just how your character, I think his character dictated that he was going to work his best. He became a great fighter. He became a great teacher. His books are great. He became successful in movies. He became successful in film, in TV. It just everything he touches goes to gold because I think his heart's in the right place, and he uses these life lessons he learned in the martial arts to be successful.
Definitely.
So yeah. So Chuck's book, Secret of Inner Strength, and Bruce Lee's book, Tao of Jeet Kune Do.
Okay, good.
Those would be books I advise.
Okay.
When I write mine, I put those books on the shelves and just read mine.
Well, there you go. How about a favorite martial arts TV show?
Well, the Kung Fu Legend, the TV, the Western with David Carradine. Yep. I like that one because philosophy. It wasn't fight scenes because we all know David Carradine is not a real TV martial arts.
Right.
That could have been Bruce Lee. But anyway.
Yes.
But I've met David Carradine several times. He was a great guy. He was always wonderful to me. Very generous, very kind, very giving. And I got nothing bad to say about him. But that was actually supposed to be Bruce Lee, but they thought Bruce Lee looked too Asian.
Exactly. Have you watched the new one, Warrior? That's actually based on his notes for Kung Fu that Shannon worked on, Shannon Lee?
No, I have not seen that.
Oh, you should check it out. You'd probably enjoy it a lot.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Shannon Lee's behind the whole thing. She went and found all of her dad's original notes on Kung Fu, and that's how they created the TV show Warrior. I think it's in the 3rd season right now.
Well, let me ask you this. It's called Warrior and Shannon's the producer?
I can't remember if she's the producer but I know she's involved with it. I know that.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll see. Is it on Netflix or?
I think Amazon? I believe it's Amazon, I believe.
Okay. There's so many now. I watch no TV, unfortunately. I watch no TV.
Okay.
But I should. It's just a career thing, I'm just dug into independent films. I've been doing that for 40 years. I've been in independent films. My first film was a Chinese one in 1982, and now it's 2022 or 23.
Wow. Yeah. So then I'm really curious about this one. Now, this one, you can't pick one that you've been in. Favorite martial arts movie?
I like Best the Best.
Nice. Great one. Christopher Penn. Yep. I love that movie.
When fighting in rings, I will not lie. Teared up at the end of that thing.
Yep. Actually, I had Simon Rhee on the show. We talked about that.
Rhee said, I offer myself to be
as your brother. Yep.
Yeah. And I'm close to my brother, so that the whole brother thing was getting to me.
Oh, yeah. Hey, I don't have a brother, and I teared up at that one. Come on.
No, because the real truth is he wasn't an evil guy. In his entire life, he felt guilt.
Yep.
He felt a horrible guilt, which every fighter would if you fought somebody and they died afterwards. We don't fight each other, kill each other. It's a sport. It's like you playing tennis. You hit the guy with a tennis ball in the head, he dies. How you gonna feel? I mean, it just Listen, there was a genre created by Jean-Claude and Bruce Lee, of men fighting in rings. Mm-hmm. Like there's a ring and then there's a fighting. It was a good excuse to have a bunch of different fights.
Yeah.
Just it's a competition. So a bunch of those movies were made. I made a few of them, Ring of Fire, Bloodfist. But the best one of the genre to me was Best of the Best, of where guys fought mainly in rings in a competition. That was the best one. The most heart, the better actors, bigger budget.
Yep.
There was a decent budget, and the Rhee brothers made the most iconic men fighting in ring movie in history. To me, I'm going back. I'm trying to think. Well,
I may agree.
End of the Dragon was the first one where there was an actual competition and people were fighting.
Yeah.
But then Bloodsport.
If you count, boxing, I suppose you could go with Rocky.
Yeah, there's Rocky. That was a great one. Then the Raging Bull. But Paul Newman did one about a real boxer. And but
I think I agree, though. I think Best of the Best is at the top of that list. I mean, it's one of my all-time favorites.
Yeah, for me, that would be it.
All right. Final question. Now, this one doesn't have to be a martial arts movie, and again, can't be one you've done. Just a favorite movie fight scene.
It's easy.
Yeah?
That is easy. Bruce Lee versus Chuck Norris.
Nice. In the Coliseum.
Not because of any flashy techniques, because everything they throw, the average green belt can throw. Yep. It's because it's Bruce Lee and Chuck Norris.
Yeah.
In that era, at that time, those were the two greatest martial artists on this planet.
Yep.
Those two guys. Chuck proved it in the ring, and Bruce Lee proved it with his philosophy and with his just look. He does a scene in the movie he made right after that, at Return of the Dragon, I think it was called. But it's the one where he produced it, and I think he might have even directed it. But he gets in front of this balcony and he starts flexing. He takes a deep breath and he flexes. You know, he's like showing off his build, really.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no human being that ever in history could look like that.
Exactly.
It's not bodybuilding muscles, though. It's not like you're pumped up with steroids, you got big. It's like his lats look bigger than Schwarzenegger's. It's like he had wings.
Yep.
You know which one I'm talking about, where he spreads up, his lats just pop out?
Yep.
The fight scene with Bruce Lee and Chuck Norris is the best fight scene, not because of wire work, special effects, CGI, none of that. It's Bruce Lee and Chuck Norris fighting. That's why.
That's awesome. I love it. That's a great answer. I think you might be the first one to pick that, so I like it.
You know, Chuck was the top fighter at the time.
Yep.
You know, so it's got really a little reality base. You got a real fighter in there, and you have Bruce Lee, who's a real philosopher / guru, kind of iconic martial artist. Yeah, we got to see them both in a movie together. And it was a good thing for Chuck because it started his career. You know, He said Bruce Lee put a movie, and then after that, he did his own thing. Yeah.
That's cool.
The Roman Coliseum, I think, is the place. I mean, what better place could you pick to fight? Actually, people fought to death there.
Yep.
Yeah. Hit the location. You know, of course, a lot of it was on a set, but they made it in the Roman Coliseum because people did fight to the death there.
Right.
When do you ever see this happen? The guy, the hero of the movie, kills the bad guy and then folds his belt and his uniform, lays it on him, bows, and shows respect to the guy he fought to the death.
Mm-hmm.
So when does a guy do that?
Yeah.
They don't do that. They fight. They spit on him when they go down.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they don't. And the crowd laughs at the bad guy or whatever. Or we cheer when we see Bruce Lee. They cut to a close up of him when he breaks Chuck Norris's neck because he told him, "Don't come up." You know, I don't know if you remember. Chuck is wounded. He's down. He's limping on one leg, and Bruce Lee looks at him and shakes his head. No, don't attack me. Don't make me kill you. He didn't want to kill Chuck Norris.
Right.
Chuck goes after him. Bruce Lee grabs his neck and snaps it, and then it cuts to his face, the camera, and it's a close-up, and he looks like he regrets it.
Mm-hmm.
Like he didn't want to have to kill Chuck. And then he shows all this respect when he's dead. It's just every beat of that fight is unique because they just don't do it.
Yeah. Such a good scene.
You know, they don't show respect to the bad guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great pick. Definitely a great pick. So, well, Don, I have to thank you. This has been seriously a dream come true to chat with you and have you on the show. And I loved hearing your stories and I love always meeting another fan of Best of the Best, obviously. So, yeah. But it's been so much fun. I'm so glad we made time to do this.
Yeah. Thank you for inviting me, and I hope your listeners like it. And I'd like to say thank you to all your listeners because without a fan base, I would have never had a fight career or a movie career. So thank you all.
Hey, you keep doing what you're doing. We'll keep watching and cheering you on.
Oh, good. I like that.
Thanks for listening to Everyday Martial Artist. We hope you will join us every week for a brand new episode with a different martial artist telling their story. If you enjoy the show, be sure to leave us a review. Also, be sure to check out our website at everydaymartialartist.com. There you can find all of our episodes and contact us to suggest guests and ask questions. Again, thanks for listening to Everyday Martial Artist, and we'll see you next week.